Well, hello and good evening. My name is Stephen Cowan. I am the leader of the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham, and welcome to our latest in a number of virtual cabinet meetings. I'd like to thank everybody tuning in who's going to be watching, and move on very quickly to confirm my fellow members of the cabinet who are in attendance. Can I begin with Councillor Ben Coleman, Cabinet Member for Health and Adult Social Care?
Evening.
Good evening. Councillor Adam Connell, Cabinet Member for Public Services Reform.
Good evening.
Hello. Councillor Larry Culhane, Cabinet Member for Children and Education.
Hi, good evening.
Councillor Wesley Harcourt, Cabinet Member for the Environment.
Good evening.
Councillor Lisa Homan, Cabinet Member for Housing.
Good evening.
Councillor Andrew Jones, Cabinet Member for the Economy.
Good evening.
Councillor Sue Macmillan, Cabinet Member for Strategy.
She has sent her apologies, Leader.
Okay, she was here a second ago. Cabinet Member, Councillor Max Schmidt, Cabinet Member for Finance and Commercial Services.
Good evening.
Good evening. And we have apologies from Councillor Sue Fenimore, is that right? Who's the Deputy Leader?
That's correct, yes, Councillor Sue Fenimore.
Okay. We do have a number of officers attending from the different directorates, but I will mention that we've got Kim Smith, the Chief Executive, and Rhiann Davis, who's the Monitoring Officer and as part of her role as Director of Resources. Now, can I direct everybody to the agenda, please, and move straight to item number 1, and look at the minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on the 12th of October 2020. Are those minutes agreed?
Agreed.
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 Next, apologies of absence. Sue Fenimore, I think I've mentioned. Is that noted? Thank you. Declarations of interest. Item number 3. Are there any declarations of interest, please? I'm going to take the silence as a no. In which case, can I just start with an introduction and just set out a little bit where we are on COVID-19. I remain extremely grateful to all our officers in the council, and particularly to the work of Councillor Ben Coleman and Lisa Redfern, the Director of Adult Social Care, for their fine work in coordinating the borough's response, working with our partners in the NHS, with GPs, with local care homes. You will have noticed from press coverage that we have some of the best tracing systems anywhere in the United Kingdom, and I think we have been the best in London. Tracing has been fundamental to us understanding what's been going wrong with COVID, where people have been contracting it. And so since the summer, we have instigated a novel project, the idea of Ben Coleman, to phone up everybody who has COVID and find out where they got it from. And that is possible because we moved our whole organisation onto a emergency footing very early on, and then retrained our officers so that we had the human resource available to do that. And that data has meant that we are able to better understand what's gone on, but we're also now able to move on to the next stage, where those same officers are reaching out to all the different organisations where we think people have ever contracted COVID, and are making sure that we're advising people on best practice, and indeed reaching out to those who have good practice and just monitoring how that is working. So that is particularly successful in terms of our tracing. Our testing has been, again, groundbreaking, and you will have read about that in the media. And that is because we've been very quick to get tests rolled out when they've become available. You mostly, until recently, had to bid for all tests from the government. And it was good that the government very quickly realised that by giving us the ability to test people using places like our partners in Westfield and other public spaces, that we could have large numbers of people tested and get that data. So we've been able to develop an expertise in Hammersmith and Fulham that I think everyone in the borough should be proud of, and I'm grateful to all the officers that have worked on that. I would stress that there is a huge bright light of hope at the end of this COVID-19 tunnel that is beckoning us forward into the future in the form of the vaccine. And I fully expect that within 6 months, large proportions of our population will have been completely vaccinated, and we will have cracked the back of this by the end of the spring. But I would stress, sticking with the tunnel analogy, and to be a little bit of a downer, despite the bright light being at the end of the tunnel, the metaphor is very clear. We are still in the tunnel, unfortunately, and there is still the possibility for super spreader events to happen where people catch diseases, whether it's people organising events to get together for social reasons, or whether it's Christmas, or whether it's any other reason. I would caution everybody to make sure that they are particularly vigilant over Christmas. What happens at Christmas traditionally, and which is the unspoken side of Christmas, is many people do contract illnesses. Families get together, people meet, and within all that merriment and kindness of Christmas and celebration of the different festivals, there is often diseases spread. And you see that in the numbers going to hospital in January and February, sometimes through to March in a particularly bad year. We have to guard against that. It's vitally important that we understand this will be a surreal Christmas, but it is the last one. So whether you're tempted to organise an event for people to get together, and what it is, there was a march on the bridge I saw over the weekend, and I'm upset to see the number of people who were not socially distancing, or whether it is a social event. I would stress that no matter what the reason you think it might be okay to get together, hold off. We're still in the tunnel. While that bright light is there, we won't be there until the spring. And so it's only a few more months to go, and hopefully we'll be out of the worst of this. So that's really the best advice I got hot from the press, having heard what was discussed by the Director of Public Health in London, and indeed by our own expert health professionals in Hammersmith and Fulham. I reiterate that we're nearly there, but we're not there yet. Okay, I don't know if anyone else has anything to add on this at this point on the COVID crisis, in which case we can move on to the rest of the agenda. So we've got to delivering integrated enforcement in Hammersmith and Fulham, item number 4. Councillor Sue Fenimore was not here because of an illness, and so I will just talk through a little bit about this and give you the ideas, and then I'll ask for agreement. Before I do that, does anyone else want to come in on this issue? Nope. All right. Well, we're determined in Hammersmith and Fulham as a #1 priority to after COVID-19 is tackling crime and the causes of crime. Many people, particularly those disenfranchised from society or most voiceless, suffer crime, and what with huge national cuts in the numbers of police, there is a real fear that crime has been on the march for some time. What this report allows us to do is to set up the biggest council reaction to that in a very long period of time. And we will be putting a number of officers onto the street, law enforcement officers, up to 70. And as I mentioned in the budget report last February, we'll also be bringing forward after that a gangs unit to target those insidious criminals who are reaching out to our young people and enslaving them into gangs. Now, there was the case that a generation ago, our young people were potential victims of crime because they'd be enticed into it at very young ages, 8 and 9, and often from very vulnerable families and in very vulnerable housing setups. What we're saying is that it is intolerable for that to have happened. But the way it's progressed is now people are simply just threatened. Take this package to that street corner, do this, or otherwise these bad things will happen to you and your family. Now that goes on in the streets of Hammersmith and Fulham, across our capital city, all the time. And I say we draw a great big thick line and we say that's simply not going to be tolerated. So the new gang unit will go after those people responsible for that. It works closely in conjunction with the police, as do our law enforcement officers, and I commend this report. Do officers have anything else they want to add to that particular report? Is there any questions about that report? Well, in that case, it is the biggest spend.
Sorry, Leader. Struggling to get my unmute myself. Is it possible just to add a couple of small items?
Absolutely, Wesley, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Leader. Just to add a little bit, because part of this unit does cover and cross over into my brief, because what it does, it brings together and merges teams from across a number of areas, like the neighbourhood wardens, the parks police, street scene enforcement, markets, licensing and such like are all going to be part of this team. And as you rightly say, it increases the number of officers available by some 60%. So it really is very, very good news. There's going to be more frequent patrols in parks, for instance, and each ward is going to have dedicated enforcement officers to undertake patrols, meet with residents and talk to them and so on. So we've also been obviously talking, because the police are involved in this, talking to the borough commander who endorses this proposal. So I'd just like to leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Wesley. I would say this is a huge amount of money to be spent. As you know, the council is under huge financial pressure. Our budget has gone in the last 10 years from £184 million to £121 million. So to spend £4 million going after criminals is a large amount of our resource. But I can tell you, when you meet the victims of crime, it is just simply a no-brainer. Nobody anywhere in our borough should ever be a victim of crime. That is the goal. And anyone who commits crime, we should go after, get arrested, and get them taken off the streets. This is a huge and complicated job, and I really think this new coordinated approach is a big step in the war on crime. I commend the report. Can I ask you to vote for it, please? Is that agreed?
Agreed.
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 Anyone abstain? Are there any votes against? That's agreed unanimously. Next is the item number 5, procurement strategy for consultancy services framework. Councillor Lisa Homan, Cabinet for Housing. Do you want to introduce the report, please?
Yeah, just briefly. As it says in the summary, this is setting out the proposal to set up a framework agreement with pre-vetted high-quality technical consultants offering various services to the council, which until now we've had to take quite timely consultation in terms of employing them when we need them for urgent business. If you look down in the report to, I think it's page 40, it does actually set out the sort of consultants, the sort of people that we want to have on this framework. So it's people like structural engineers, stock condition survey specialists, mechanical and electrical engineers, fire safety engineers, and it's much of this has been driven by our compliance-based capital program, so that we can actually have a framework to call off very quickly when we need to. The advantage to the framework as well would be that other departments in the council, besides the economy department, will be able to use the pre-vetted services that are on the framework agreement. So I wholeheartedly recommend it to the Cabinet.
Okay, are there any questions, please? Any comments from any other Cabinet member, please? Can I ask if that is agreed?
Agreed.
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 Thank you. Thank you very much. Does anybody abstain? No. And does anyone vote against? No. In which case that item is agreed. Thank you very much. We now move on to the forward plan of key decisions. Is the forward plan of key decisions noted?
Noted.
Is there any other business? No, in which case, can I thank everybody for attending and wish you a good evening on this cold and frosty night. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.